What's going on, Babylonians? It's me, Songs of Rage, back with another Tiny Tina's Wonderlands video to bring to you on the channel. I hope you're well. Today we're actually going to be breaking down all the extra information that we've had given to us from Tiny Tina's. So we've got a couple of the skill trees kind of brought to us for pretty much every single one of the classes. We've had the action skills pretty much confirmed. We've had class feats on top of that. Basically, we've had everything kind of dumped our way, and it's going to be absolutely amazing. So what I wanted to do in this video is to be able to break down what each of the class, what you're going to expect from them, what it kind of like, what kind of playstyle it kind of caters towards, and then take it from there. And obviously just generate a little bit of hype for this game. I've already got my pre-order in. I hope you have as well, and I'm really looking forward to it. I'm really hoping I'm not going to get disappointed when it comes to this game, but let's get right into it. Make sure you drop a like and a subscribe. It really does help the channel out, and we'll definitely be bringing a lot of Tiny Tina content coming your way. But let's get into it with the first one, which will be the Berserker. Now with the Berserker, we've got a class feat of Rage of Ancients. Now, using an action skill causes the Fatemaker to become enraged, adding bonus frost damage to their attacks. Enraged duration will not deplete while an action skill is active, and ends if the Fatemaker enters Save Your Soul. Activating an action skill when already enraged restores a portion of the enraged timer. So it looks like this class is designed all around the enrage kind of function with this class, and it's probably going to be a case that you're going to want to keep that enrage going as long as possible to be able to get that additional frost damage to every single one of your attacks. But let's get a look into the action skills. So we've had Dreadwind and we've had Feral Surge. We pretty much already had those confirmed, but when we've seen, like, obviously the introduction to all the classes. But what we haven't seen is like the additional information as to like confirmation as to what these actually will do. So Dreadwind, where basically is your spinning attack and grants increased movement speed and slow immunity for the duration, is the main special thing for that. And then Feral Surge on top of that is the leap towards enemies, dealing frost damage to all nearby. Any non-boss enemies damaged will be instantly killed if their total HP is below a certain percentage. If Feral Surge kills an enemy, its cooldown is reset. So this is going to be pretty cool to be able to go leaping around like from enemy to enemy to enemy to horde to horde to horde. Basically, you're just going to be like the main movement person when it comes to that kind of side of things, as long as you can consistently be able to kill an enemy. But it's nice to know that if you automatically kill them if they're below a certain percentage. So it's going to be interesting to test to be able to find out what percentage number that actually will be. Now with the class tree, where we've been given some passive skills, it's going to be interesting to see if this is just purely for the Berserker. Obviously, when it comes to Borderlands, we are used to seeing 3 class trees, or maybe even 4 if you take in Borderlands 3 with the extra DLC that kind of came in. So is it going to be a case that we only got 1 skill tree for each of the classes? And obviously that's the reason why we're able to double spec into different classes across that way. Maybe it's a case that we're just getting to see 1, maybe there will be more coming out, who knows, but for the time being, the information that we've been given so far, for the tier 1 passive skills for the Berserker, we've got just increases to frost damage. There's no percentages or anything like that provided at this moment in time, so we've just got to purely speculate when it comes to it. Savagery increases melee damage, and enraging duration is increased, and unyielding percentage of missing health regenerates over time, and when enraged this effect is doubled. Pretty standard stuff when it comes to the first line. So moving on to tier 2, we've got Icebreaker, where the Fatemaker gains increased damage dealt to enemies that are slowed. The closer an enemy is to being frozen, the more damage is increased. We've got the Old Ways, where the Fatemaker deals bonus damage and gains increased damage reduction. The closer they are to enemies, the closer they are, the greater the bonus. And then Instinct, where reload speed is increased, weapon swap speed is increased, and while enraged, the effect is also doubled on top of that. When it comes to tier 3, we've got Cold Snap, where movement speed is increased, just as standard, and Frost efficiency is also increased, but when enraged this effect is doubled. Unarmored Defense, a portion of the Fatemaker's ward is reserved and cannot be restored, but their maximum health is increased by a percentage of the reserved amount. Health can no longer be reserved. And then we've got Blood Frenzy, where it's a kill skill where you restore a percentage of your enraged timer and a percentage of your maximum health. So Blood Frenzy is probably going to be one of the main things to be able to pick up when it comes to that skill tree. So I can see that being a 3-pointer right there and then. When it comes to tier 4, we've got Ancient Fury, where maximum health is just increased and splash damage is also increased. And then Relentless Rage, if the Fatemaker damages an enemy while in Save Your Soul, its duration is extended. The amount extended decreases over time. Killing an enemy while in Save Your Soul will cause the Fatemaker to become enraged. When we've got tier 5, we've got Blast Chill. Whenever the Fatemaker deals a melee damage to an enemy, there is a chance to release a Frost Nova, dealing frost ability damage to nearby enemies, and Frost Nova cannot critically hit. We've got Iron Squall, where fire rate is increased, melee attack speed is increased, and when enraged, this effect is also doubled. And then lastly, we've got Tier 6, Blood of the Fallen, which is a kill skill. The Fate Maker's remaining action skill cooldown is reduced by a percentage. If an action skill is currently active, its duration is extended instead. I believe that's very familiar or very similar to that of what Zane used to have in Borderlands 3. So basically, there's a lot of kill skills that are activating right now to be able to reduce, obviously, your cooldowns, which means you get your action skill a lot back quicker. So overall, very good. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's just like a standard kind of enrage. Keep that meter like topped up at the maximum. Basically, keep it like reduce your shield or your what was it called, a ward, if I remember right, and increasing your health as far as possible. So you can kind of become a little bit of a tank, especially when you're killing enemies and you're just keeping yourself going. So overall, I like the idea of the Berserker, but the action skills haven't really sold it for me. So on to the next one. So next up we have the Clawbringer, and the Clawbringer is one of the ones that when I saw the trailer I knew I was going to actually go into this probably first, but we've got confirmation on their action skills and we've also got confirmation on their class feat. So their feat is a Wyvern Companion. They're accompanied by a wyvern that flies through the environment and attacks enemies with its claws and fire breath. Any increases to the Fate Maker's damage also applies to their companion. So we're going to see a little bit of like a pet side of things when it comes to increasing our own damage. It means our pets are also going to benefit from that as well. When it comes to action skills, we've got the Cleansing Flames, which is the slamming the hammer into the ground, dealing melee damage and creating fire nova, and it also just deals fire damage to nearby enemies. Nothing too special there. When it comes to Stormbreaker Dragon's Judgement, which is the throwing the hammer, dealing lightning ability damage to all enemies it touches, it sticks where it lands, deals lightning melee damage every second to all nearby enemies. The Fate Maker can recall the hammer, damaging enemies along its path, ending the action skill early and refunding a portion of the cooldown. So nothing really new there in terms of news, where we kind of already guessed that, apart from obviously the getting the action skill back a little bit earlier if you actually recall the hammer. So it'll be interesting to see how much that actually does reduce it down. But if we look into the skill tree that we've got so far, so we've got Oath of Fire, where the Fate Maker deals bonus fire damage with their guns, and their Wyvern Companion deals bonus fire damage. I think that's going to be really nice to actually have. That's probably going to be nice across most of the classes anyway, just to have that, because when it came to Borderlands games, the majority of enemies that you did come up against were obviously had health bars, which means they were weak to fire. While there were a few enemies that mixed it up with like armor and shield and all that kind of thing, the majority still had a health bar that was underlying, so therefore it kind of made sense to always go for some kind of incendiary. So it's going to be interesting to see if the enemies actually do mix it up a little bit more when it comes to this game, but always fire damage is always a good one to be able to go for. When it goes Radiance, the Fate Maker gains increased maximum ward capacity, so getting increased shields. Oath of Thunder, the Fate Maker deals bonus lightning damage with their melee attacks, and their Wyvern Companion deals more lightning damage as well. Tier 2, we've got Dragon Aura. The Fate Maker is surrounded by a Dragon Aura that grants themselves and all allies inside it increased elemental damage, so that's going to be nice to actually go around with your friends. I think this will actually be a nice co-op kind of build to be able to go for with this one. We've got Dedication, where the Fate Maker gains increased action skill cooldown rate. The higher their shields, the wards, the greater the bonus. We've got Rebuke, which the Fate Maker gains damage reduction from all attacks, and additionally all allies near the Fate Maker gain a chance to reflect damage back to their attackers as lightning damage. So basically you're going to be like almost like a paladin in a way with most of the builds for this at this moment in time, or that's the way it looks like it's kind of encouraging us to be able to go for. We've got Blasphemous Favor, which is a kill skill where killing an enemy with a gun summons a fire orb that seeks out a new enemy dealing fire ability damage, and killing an enemy with a melee damage summons a lightning orb that seeks out an enemy dealing lightning damage as well. So you can actually mix it up quite nicely with that kind of kill skill. Tier 4 is a Firebolt, which the Wyvern Companion will occasionally shoot firebolts at enemies, causing damage in an area and leaving a splat. Additionally, the Fate Maker gains increased gun damage, so that's going to be a nice one to pick up. Friend to Flame, the Fate Maker's Wyvern Companion gains increased damage, so it'll be interesting to see if that actually is enough to be able to make it worthwhile. Storm Breath, the Wyvern Companion will occasionally use its lightning breath on enemies, causing lightning damage that can arc from enemy to enemy, and additionally the Fate Maker gains increased damage reduction, so it might not be too bad to be able to pick both of those up, but we'll have to see when the game actually does drop. Tier 5, we've got after dealing fire damage, the Fate Maker gains increased critical hit damage, and after dealing lightning damage, the Fate Maker gains increased critical hit chance. So it's going to make sense to be able to go back and forth between melee and gun. So we'll actually see how well that actually kind of complements the playstyle and if it is actually viable. Indomitable, if the Fate Maker would enter Save Your Soul, instead they refill their ward and deal bonus lightning damage for a short time. This skill has a long cooldown. I think I've seen somewhere that the long cooldown is about 2 minutes, and I don't think that's really a long cooldown. I can't remember exactly where I've seen that. It might be on one of these other skill trees or something, but I remember seeing long cooldown and it said 2 minutes, and I was like, that's not really that long, really. The tier 6 ability, which is Storm Smite. Whenever the Fate Maker activates an action skill, they call down elemental bolts that deal fire ability damage or lightning ability damage to all nearby enemies. So overall, I'm still set for actually going for a Clawbringer to be able to go as one of my main classes. I think, especially if I play this with Dan and Ben, it would make sense for one of us to actually go for this to be able to give ourselves additional damage as well as additional damage reduction. So yeah, definitely one of the better classes to actually take in by the sounds of things. Next up we have the Graveborn, which obviously seemed quite interesting on the trailers as well. And their feat is the Demi-Lich Companion, accompanied by the Demi-Lich Companion that targets enemies at range and deals dark magic damage. Whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, the Demi-Lich will cast Hellish Blast, creating a homing projectile of the spell's elemental type, dealing damage to nearby enemies on impact. Any increases to the Fate Maker's damage will also apply to their companion, so we're actually going to see that quite nicely. The action skills, which we have seen before, Dire Sacrifice, which sacrifices some of your current health, so that actually did confirm what I said in the previous video when we had a look quickly at the classes, if it was going to be a case of taking a percentage of your max health or if it was your current health. So it looks like you can't actually kill yourself with this ability. So when it comes to current health, to deal dark magic damage and apply dark magic status effects to all enemies nearby. Dire Sacrifice will deals bonus damage proportional to the sacrificed amount of health, so you're going to get more of a benefit when you use this at full health compared to when you are at low health. We also have Reaper of Bones. The Fate Maker is fully healed, gains leech efficiency, and deals bonus dark magic damage for a duration, but loses an ever-increasing amount of health per second. When the Fate Maker would die, they become invulnerable for a duration, restore some of the health, and Reaper of Bones ends. So this is also another ability that you can't actually kill yourself with. It looks like it will actually save you when you actually lose all your health. I imagine that's going to have some kind of cooldown, probably related to the cooldown for the action ability in the first place, but that could be a lot of fun to be able to mess about with. It's going to be Dire Sacrifice didn't work the way I was expecting it to in terms of like boosting up your damage. I was expecting it to be like a flat damage increase, but it looks like it is just going to be for dark magic. So yeah, I don't think Graveborn is necessarily as strong as what we were initially thinking it was going to be, but let's have a look at the skill tree. Let's have a look from there. So first up we've got Mortal Vessel, which increases our maximum health and leech efficiency, so that's definitely going to be one of the worthwhile ones to pick up to be able to obviously get the most out of your action skills and also get the most out of getting your health back up to full. We've got Essence Drain, which is a kill skill on spell duration rate is increased for a duration. Faithful Thralls, the Fate Maker deals bonus damage for every companion they have. Companion respawn rate is also increased. So this is going to be one that's actually really going to play quite nicely with another class that has another companion, so definitely can take 2 or more. The Sanguine Sacrament, whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, they regenerate health over a brief duration. Dark Pact, dark magic damage is just increased across the board. Harvest kill skill, which companions deal bonus dark magic damage for a duration. This effect can stack. We've got tier 3, we've got Dread Covenant, which a portion of the damage taken by the Fate Maker is redirected to the Demi-Lich instead. When the Fate Maker reaches 1 health, they immediately restore health, sacrificing the Demi-Lich, and this skill has a long cooldown, so it's a nice way to be able to like keep yourself out of fight for your soul. Stain of the Soul, the Fate Maker spells deal bonus dark magic damage, and then Dark Hydra, which is a kill skill, is a chance to summon a Dark Hydra companion, dealing dark magic ability damage to nearby enemies for a duration. Tier 4, we've got Ascension, which is a kill skill. Maximum health and spell damage are increased for a long duration. This effect can stack. We've got Punishment, where the Demi-Lich casts Hellish Blast. There is a chance it will be cast again after a brief delay. Tier 5, we've got Lord of Edges. The Fate Maker deals increased damage dealt and damage reduction the lower the health. Gasp, which is whenever the Fate Maker deals spell damage, there is a chance to create an explosion dealing ability damage of the spell's elemental type to nearby enemies. The elemental explosion cannot critically hit. And then lastly, the Capstone, which is Morheim's Blessing, and casting a spell automatically activates all the Fate Maker's kill skills, which also is very reminiscent of that of what Zane has in one of his class mods, which was Seen Dead, if I remember right. Every single time you activate something, you actually gained all your kill skills just activated straight there and then. So the Graveborn is definitely not a bad class by the sounds of things. It's going to be interesting to see how it pairs with other classes. Yeah, I've definitely got my eyes on this one, but I don't think it's necessarily going to take my first pick anyway. So the next one we have is Spell Shot. Now, Spell Shot was obviously the one that dealt a lot with like magic when it came to like casting spells, all that kind of good stuff. So the class feat, which is Spell Weaving, casting a spell or reloading a weapon grants the Spell Shot a stack of Spell Weaving, increasing spell damage, and Spell Weaving stacks automatically decay after a few seconds. So casting a repeating spell has a chance to award additional Spell Weaving stacks with each repeating cast. So I'm pretty sure, without looking into the skill tree while we're just about to go read it, basically it's going to focus a lot around the Spell Weaving stacks to be able to deal additional damage and be able to get all those additional benefits. So let's have a look into the action skills. So we've got Ambidextrous, which may equip a spell into their action skill slot. Whenever the spell shot presses the action skill button, they cast that spell, so nice and simple. And we also got the Polymorph, which was something we've already seen, which turns an enemy into a skeep. If the enemy is immune, the spell shot instantly casts a free spell on that enemy and gains 2 free stacks of Spell Weaving. So that's going to be the way to be able to get around elites or kind of like bosses, which means you're actually going to get yourself additional stacks. You're going to get a free spell out of it, so it's actually going to benefit you probably more having that ability. But let's have a look into the skill tree. So lastly, while the Polymorph is active, any player that damages the skeep has a chance to cast a free spell. This effect is guaranteed the first time the Fate Maker deals gun damage. If the spell shot casts a free spell this way, they gain a stack of Spell Weaving. So in terms of the skill tree, we've gone Spell Sniper, so you gain increased spell critical hit chance. We've got Magic Bullets, which a portion of all bonuses the Fate Maker receives to spell damage is applied to their guns as well. We've got Prestidigitation, which is gain increased reload speed. That can't be a word, surely. We've got Tier 2, which is Font of Mana, which is gain increased spell cooldown rate and gain increased action skill cooldown rate as well. We've got Mage Armor. Whenever the Fate Maker gains a stack of Spell Weaving, they restore a portion of their ward. Just Warming Up, which is gain increased fire rate for every Spell Weaving stack. Tier 3, which is one that's really interesting to me, is Glass Cannon, which is the Fate Maker's ward no longer automatically recharges, but they gain drastically increased spell damage. So this means that you're kind of similar to how the first class that we looked at, it kind of takes away like a portion of your shield. This means that you're actually not going to be able to restore your shield unless you're using, Mage Armor, which whenever the Fate Maker gains a stack of Spell Weaving, they gain a portion of their ward again. So you're going to see possibly a decent chunk of extra damage to be able to come out of this for the Glass Cannon, and I imagine most of the DPS builds are pretty much going to go this way as well. When it comes to Tier 4, we've got Imbued Weapon. Whenever the Fate Maker casts a spell, their guns deal bonus damage of that spell's element for a short time. This effect stacks once per spell. We've got High Thread Count, which gain increased max Spell Weaving stacks, so it allows you to be able to go even higher. We've got Warcaster, which is a kill skill. Whenever the Fate Maker kills an enemy, there's a chance their weapon is instantly reloaded. This chance is increased per Spell Weaving stack. On Tier 5, we've got Double Knot. Whenever you score a critical hit with a spell, deal bonus damage equal to your gun's element. And then 1 slot 1 kill, gain increased gun damage per Spell Weaving stack, which is also going to be one of the main ways I imagine this build will actually pop off quite well. And then Tier 6, which is the Capstone, Sever the Thread. Gun critical hits have a chance to instantly reset all spell cooldowns. This skill has a short cooldown. So it's definitely going to be worthwhile to actually be a ranged person in this case. So obviously you're going to be using a gun to be able to hit critical shots, to be able to then cast all your spells on top of that. So it's going to be interesting to see if the spells are actually worthwhile and see if they're actually decent damage dealers and how that's going to really compete when it comes to endgame content. So next up we have the Spore Warden, and the Spore Warden's class feat is the Mushroom Companion, and the Fate Maker is accompanied by a Mushroom Companion that targets nearby enemies, dealing poison damage. Now, pinging an enemy will cause your Mushroom Companion to lunge towards them, and any increases to your damage will also increase, apply to your companion as well. So when it comes to the skills, we've seen both of them in action when it came to the trailer. So we've got Barrage, which summons an ethereal bow firing 7 arrows that deal ability damage on impact. Arrows ricochet twice between nearby enemies. Barrage has multiple charges and increases the gun damage applied to damage dealt by Barrage as well. And then we also have Blizzard, which is that creates 3 frost cyclones at a duration that seek out nearby enemies, dealing frost damage over time. So nice and simple, pretty much bog standard when it comes to it. About as easy to come as it gets, really. So when it comes to the skill tree, we've got Bounty of the Hunt, which is a kill skill. Action skill cooldown rate is increased for a brief duration. We've got Kindred Heart, which is companion health is increased and companion damage is also increased. We have Eagle Eye, which gun damage is increased and gun handling is also increased. At tier 2 we have Affinity, which gives us ability damage, or additional ability damage anyway. Spore Cloud, your mushroom companion will occasionally let one rip, taunting enemies and leaving a poison cloud that deals damage over time. Of course, that's got to be in there. But then we've got Bullseye, which is gun critical hit chance is increased, and companion critical hit chance is also increased on top of that. At tier 3 we've got Quiver of Holding, which is increased magazine size, and the Fate Maker's currently equipped weapon regenerates ammo over time. Similar to kind of like Moe's in a way with that one. Medicinal Mushroom, while the Fate Maker is in Save Your Life, their Mushroom companion will attempt to revive them. If it does, you and your companion gain increased damage dealt for a duration. And we've also got Windrunner, which is a kill skill increase in movement speed and fire rate for a duration, and this effect can stack. At tier 4 we have Thrill of the Hunt, which gun critical hits grant increased companion damage for a duration, and this effect can stack up to 10 times. Cooled Shot, while aiming down sights, the Fate Maker gains an ever-increasing amount of increased gun damage and damage reduction. At tier 5 we have Wrath of Nature. Whenever the Fate Maker deals deals ability damage to an enemy, the affected enemy takes increased damage from all sources for a duration. And we've also got Headhunter, where gun damage dealt to in critical hit areas is increased. So this is going to be your crit main. And then lastly, the Capstone is Play the Angles, which the Fate Maker's gun critical hits have a chance to ricochet, dealing a reduced ability damage to a nearby enemy. Ricocheted shots have a small chance to ricochet an additional time. So I believe some of these abilities are very reminiscent of that of Zero from Borderlands 2, so that's going to be a very nice kind of like callback to that kind of skill tree as well. But overall, it's pretty much focused around about critical hits, so it's going to be interesting to see if this is going to be your main boss killer when it comes down to it. And lastly, we have the Stammer Mansion. Now, the Stammer Mansion's class feat is Dirty Fighting, where the Fate Maker's critical hit chance is just increased, just flat. No companions, no nothing like that. You just got a better critical hit chance. Now, when it comes to action skills, we have Ghostblade, where you throw out Ghostblade, which spins in place at a target location, dealing melee damage periodically to nearby enemies based on the equipped melee weapon. Pressing the action skill button while Ghostblade is active causes it to teleport to a different location and reduces its remaining duration by a small percentage. We also have From the Shadows, which is the kind of like fadeaway summer. So you enter stealth, turning invisible. While in stealth, all damage dealt is automatically a critical hit, but critical hits deal reduced damage. When it comes to the skill tree though, we have tier 1 of Arsenal, which is melee damage is increased, spell damage is increased, and gun damage is increased, just everything across the board. So this is going to actually be quite nice to be able to pair with other ones or other classes, just be able to have that kind of mod in there. We also have Haste, where melee attack speed is increased, movement speed is increased, and when you cast a spell, double this bonus for a duration. We have Potent Poisons, which status effect damage is increased, and status effect duration is also increased. On tier 2 we have Follow Up, whenever the Fate Maker deals gun damage to an enemy, increase the damage of your next melee attack. This effect can stack and melee attacks consume all stacks. Swift Death, while moving the Fate Maker gains increased damage dealt. The faster the Fate Maker moves, the greater these bonuses. And Exploit their weaknesses. Whenever the Fate Maker applies a status effect to an enemy, the affected enemy takes increased damage from all sources for its duration. This effect can stack per unique status effect. At tier 3 we have Nimble Fingers. Whenever the Fate Maker deals melee damage, their fire rate and spell damage are increased for a duration. And we also have Shadow Step, which is a kill skill, where the next melee attack is a guaranteed critical hit for a short duration. At tier 4 we have Sneak Attack, where critical hit damage is just increased. We have Elusive, where you can shoot and sprint at the same time and gain a chance to evade incoming damage while moving. The faster you move, the greater the chance. And we also have Contagion. Whenever the Fate Maker applies a status effect, there is a chance it spreads to nearby enemies. If no enemies are nearby, deal a percentage of the status effect total damage to the enemy instead. At tier 5 we have 1000 Cuts, where critical hits grant the Fate Maker increased damage dealt for a duration. This effect can stack to up to 10 times, and melee critical hits grant additional stacks. An Alchemical Agent, where melee critical hits apply a random status effect. And then lastly, the Capstone at tier 6, gun and spell critical hits have a chance to create an ethereal blade above the target that will impale them after a short delay. Ethereal blades deal melee damage based on the Fate Maker's equipped melee weapon. Overall, I'm loving what they're doing with these skill trees, because they all kind of play into a different playstyle, which is very, very nice. But what I'm finding, at least when I've actually just read through those, is that my initial combination that I was finding when it came to the classes, I may have to change up. And I think the reason why is because Stammer Mansion basically is there to be able to, as a really nice combination for most of the classes. And so I do think that paired with the Hammer class, the Stormbreaker, is probably going to be my go-to, or my first one that I'm going to try out, just to be able to see, because I think there's some really nice synergy when it comes to gun damage and melee damage. So that will be my first protocol. It would be interesting to see what other classes we can actually make and what other combinations we can make. But I want to know in the comment section down below, what do you think of these class changes? What do you think of the action skills, all that kind of thing? Now we have some extra information, and has that affected your choices into what you actually are going to spec into when Tiny Tina's actually does come out? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. But that pretty much wraps up the rest of this video. So as always, thank you all so much for making the all the way to the end of this video, and thank you so much to the Babylonian family as always for their continued support, where their names will appear at the end of every single one of our videos. As always, keep yourselves safe, keep yourselves well, and I'll see you all on that next video.